Ever wonder why certain habits, even if they seem harmless, quietly erode your self-respect and turn genuine connection into a strained performance? Tonight we're diving into 10 subtle behaviors that can weaken a man's image from a woman's perspective. No overblown macho tips here, just straight talk through the lens of Stoic philosophy. Think of it as clearing out mental and emotional clutter that sells your value short. We'll walk through how each attitude might start as a mere quirk, but eventually saps your confidence, warps your boundaries, or ties your worth to external validation. More than just do's and don'ts, this breakdown aims to reshape how you approach everything from casual conversation to deeper emotional engagement. Because when you peel back the layers of self-doubt and hidden neediness, you free up the calm strength Stoics are famous for, letting you show up genuinely without the baggage of weak behaviors. Ready to pinpoint and drop these hidden pitfalls. Hit play, keep a notepad handy, and let's see how harnessing clear-eyed self-discipline can transform the way you carry yourself around women and in life generally. Because once you stop doing this, you won't just look stronger, you'll feel it from the inside out. Let's dive in. Begging for approval often unfolds in subtle ways. Constantly seeking validation in her eyes, fishing for compliments, or anxiously double-checking if you've met her standards. While it might feel harmless just making sure you're on good terms, the underlying signal is one of self-doubt. Stoicism teaches that your worth shouldn't hinge on external thumbs up, but on your own clear-eyed sense of virtue and effort. When you hover around her opinions, waiting for that reassurance, you surrender the calm independence that could otherwise define you. This approval-seeking habit undercuts your value because it communicates a constant need for external permission to feel secure if every step you take begs for her nod. She can't help but sense that you're not steering your life on your own term. Imagine Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus pausing before every action to say, "Is this okay with you? Do I still look good here?" It erodes their composure and, by extension, their sense of agency. The same principle applies in modern relationships. Real confidence lives in owning your decisions, learning from inevitable mistakes, and standing by your choices without fishing for comfort in her reactions. Sometimes the root cause is a fear of rejection or a history of feeling overlooked. Stoic philosophy doesn't tell you to ignore that pain. It suggests you face it head on, recognize the impulse to ask, "Am I enough?" and see it for what it is, a reflex to outsource your self-assurance. The fix? Start with small daily acts of self-reliance, deciding for yourself what you'll wear or how you'll spend your free time, and resisting the urge to glance at her for approval. Each moment you trust your own judgment, you reinforce the inner independence that makes constant validation unnecessary. Over time, this shift liberates not just you, but the entire dynamic. She'll pick up on your steadiness, a welcome change from the usual "Do you like this?" or "Should I do that?" Instead of babysitting your confidence, She has the chance to engage with you as an equal. You stand taller, show genuine empathy, not forced niceness, and let your convictions speak louder than frantic attempts at people-pleasing. Ironically, dropping the need to be liked tends to lead to deeper respect and connection, because true self-worth always resonates more than a performance for approval. Ever catch yourself carefully scripting each word when you talk to her? Afraid you'll slip up, say something wrong, or come off as uninteresting. That's fearful communication in action. While a bit of thoughtfulness can be good, constantly running every line through a mental filter drains spontaneity and reveals an undercurrent of anxiety. You're signaling that you need her immediate approval to keep going. Stoicism challenges this mindset by urging us to speak from a core of self-possession, not nervous overthinking. Fearful communication doesn't just dull your natural spark, it also puts her in the role of judge or critic. Every question you ask or statement you make feels like a test of whether she's pleased or not bored. Epictetus would say you're surrendering your tranquility to factors beyond your control, her reactions, her moods, rather than focusing on your own clarity and intent. Instead of contributing fresh insights or humor, you fret over how she'll rank your performance. That kills genuine connection and fosters a stilted vibe where you're never quite at ease. This habit often traces back to a fear of rejection or a desire to manage her perception of you. Yet trying too hard to avoid any conversational mistake can create exactly what you fear: awkwardness and secondhand embarrassment. True poise surfaces when you trust your own reasoning, proceed with sincere curiosity, and accept that not every line will land perfectly, but that's okay. Marcus Aurelius taught that each action we take should align with virtue and reason, not the shifting whims of external validation. So if you feel compelled to overanalyze your words, step back for a moment. Are you acting out of principle, sharing what's real to you, or chasing a reaction? Begin to unlearn fearful communication by practicing small steps of authenticity. Share a quick opinion without mentally rehearsing it first, or allow yourself a mild, self-deprecating joke to lighten the mood without worrying if it's cool enough. It's in these unrehearsed moments that real personhood shines through. She sees not a man treading on eggshells, but someone comfortable in his own skin, capable of mistakes, but unashamed to make them. That rawness is often far more appealing than any perfect script you could deliver. Ultimately, every sentence shouldn't feel like a gamble if you ground your speech in sincerity and respect, both for yourself and her. The Stoic approach reminds you that while you can't control how she reacts, you can control the honesty and composure behind your words. Once you let go of the frantic need to edit yourself for acceptance, you'll find conversations flowing naturally, and any spark of nervousness you do feel becomes mere background noise instead of a dominating force. Blame shifting might feel easier in the moment, dodging guilt with excuses, pointing fingers, or insisting circumstances forced your hand. But it carries a hidden cost. It undermines your credibility and signals an unwillingness to stand by your choices. A pattern of "it's not my fault" or "they made me do it" communicates that you're driven more by self-protection than accountability. Women pick up on this, often reading it as weakness, because real confidence is built on owning your actions, both the wins and the losses. Stoicism presses the point that true growth happens when you confront your mistakes, not when you avoid them. Blame shifting also drains respect because it dodges the necessary honesty that keeps relationships grounded. When every setback gets pinned on someone else, maybe your coworkers, your family, or even her, it sends the message you're unwilling to reflect on your own shortfalls. Epictetus insisted that mastery of the self starts with accurate self-examination. If you never look inward, you're doomed to repeat old patterns. Worse, by denying responsibility, you rob yourself of learning from each misstep, effectively halting personal progress. Over time, the habit of making excuses turns into a cycle that others see right through. Instead of defaulting to blame shifting, Stoic philosophy would have you pause, weigh the facts calmly, and own up to any role you played. If there's a conflict, open by acknowledging what you could have handled better. This approach might sting your pride briefly, but it cements integrity. Women often find that level of honesty and self-awareness far more compelling than the veneer of perfection you try to maintain by deflecting fault. Marcus Aurelius would argue that facing embarrassment head-on is a sign of moral courage, whereas shirking accountability betrays an inner frailty. Ultimately, shedding the blame-shifting reflex is about embracing the Stoic principle of self-control. You can't fix circumstances, but you can correct your own behavior. Even if others contributed to the problem, focusing on your role helps you grow, setting an example of maturity that most people recognize as strength. When you drop the excuses and take your share of the responsibility, you convey steadiness and depth. Traits that not only foster trust but also highlight that you don't fear the truth. And that fearless acceptance of reality stands out as a sign of genuine confidence. Endless apologies can seem polite or even considerate at first, but they quickly morph into a pattern of self-sabotage that chips away at your image and your own sense of worth. Instead of conveying accountability, it starts to radiate insecurity. A random sorry here and there for genuine missteps is healthy. True Stoic virtue involves acknowledging when you've erred. But if every comment or small misunderstanding triggers yet another "I'm sorry," you send the message that you're on shaky ground, that you're constantly second-guessing your place. Women who often pick up on relational dynamics acutely notice this and may interpret it as weakness rather than respect. From a Stoic lens, apologizing non-stop puts your emotional reins in external hands. Every moment begs for reassurance that you haven't offended, disappointed, or disrupted. Epictetus warned about giving others too much control over your mental state. In this scenario, you're essentially letting her perspective, real or imagined, run your emotional show. A better approach is to address real mistakes swiftly and concisely. You own it, express regret, then pivot toward a solution or a calmer note. Marcus Aurelius would advise that you keep your self-esteem intact by not groveling. Instead, you maintain composure, fix what can be fixed, and move on. Moreover, when "I'm sorry" becomes habitual filler, it loses its impact for the occasions that genuinely require an apology. It's like crying wolf. People tune it out because they sense it's less about true remorse and more about your fear of displeasing anyone. Over time, that not only diminishes your credibility, it also trains you to see yourself as perpetually at fault. This subconscious narrative can bleed into other areas of life, undermining your confidence at work, among friends, and in new challenges. Stoicism's emphasis on rational self-assessment encourages you to pause before reflexively saying, ask if you truly erred or if you're just anxious about seeming imperfect. If it's the latter, let the urge pass. You'll find that withholding needless apologies actually fosters a steadier, more honest interaction, one grounded in sincerity rather than fear. It's normal to have ups and downs, but drastic mood swings where one moment you're on top of the world and the next you're silent or sulking communicate something deeper than mere sensitivity. They suggest you're constantly outsourcing your emotional stability to outside factors, often a woman's response. Rather than trusting your own steady center, you bounce from high to low depending on how you think she feels about you. Stoicism teaches that genuine composure stems from focusing on what you can control, your mindset, your actions, and letting go of what you can't, like someone else's mood or approval. When your demeanor flips unpredictably, it signals to her that you lack the inner balance to navigate small setbacks or uncertain cues. Marcus Aurelius emphasized that circumstances alone don't disturb us. It's our interpretations that create upheaval. If every delayed text or slightly negative tone leaves you sulking or lashing out, you're conveying emotional fragility instead of measured stability. Instead of demonstrating resilience, you seem captive to every shift in her behavior. That emotional whiplash also burdens the relationship. She can't predict which version of you she'll encounter, confident and charming, or withdrawn and resentful. Over time, this inconsistency wears down trust and comfort. Epictetus would point out that relationships thrive on mutual respect and reliability. A seesaw of moods undermines both. If you require constant reassurance to keep your spirits up, she may feel like she's walking on eggshells, forced to modulate your mood rather than focus on genuine connection. Breaking this pattern involves identifying the triggers that spark your mood swings. Maybe it's a casual remark that you overinterpret, or a missed call you assume spells doom. Stoic reflection asks you to pause, reframe the situation rationally, and respond with calm logic instead of raw feeling. The next time you sense your emotions spinning out, step back. Ask if you're letting external validation, or a lack of it, rule your sense of self-worth. By consciously choosing to remain steady, you signal maturity and avoid drowning the relationship in turbulent emotional waves. Ultimately, emotional whiplash arises when neediness, not real need, drives your reactions. You become dependent on her every sign of approval to maintain an even keel. Once you reclaim your self-assurance, these wild swings subside. You can still express genuine highs and lows, but they won't veer into meltdown territory over minor perceived slights. That's the Stoic advantage, cultivating a stable core that isn't shaken by fleeting signals, an inner quiet that lets you stand firm whether the moment calls for unshakable calm or well-placed warmth. Over-explaining often masquerades as clarity, yet it frequently signals doubt when you pile on justifications and disclaimers. I only said that because, or what I really meant was. You announce that you're unsure your words can stand on their own. Women quickly sense the underlying insecurity. A man scrambling to plug every hypothetical hole in the conversation rather than trusting his point to land. Stoic philosophy prizes concise, purposeful speech. Marcus Aurelius wrote entire journal entries in tight, deliberate lines because he knew surplus words dilute conviction. Likewise, every extra layer of explanation you add can chip away at the authority of your message. The urge to over-explain usually stems from a fear of being misunderstood or judged. You imagine worst-case interpretations and try to preempt them, but in doing so you flood the dialogue with needless detail. Instead of making things clearer, you overwhelm, leaving her to sift through your anxieties before she can find your actual point. Epictetus would remind you that you control your intent, not her reaction. So focus on expressing that intent cleanly, then let it breathe. If clarification is truly needed, she'll ask. Until then, brevity exudes confidence. Verbosity hints at self-doubt. Another downside of over-explaining is that it crowds out genuine listening. While you're busy layering extra context, you miss subtle cues. Her shift in posture, the question forming on her lips. Conversation is a rhythm, and monopolizing airtime with justifications throws it off beat. A concise statement followed by open space invites her perspective and demonstrates composure. That pause is a mark of self-trust. You've said enough, and now you're attentive to her response rather than frantically padding your own. Practicing Stoic brevity doesn't mean turning abrupt or cryptic. It means trimming feet until only the essential remains. Next time you feel the urge to tack on one more qualifier, stop and ask, does this add value or just soothe my nerves? If it's the latter, hold back. Speak your core message once clearly, then stay silent long enough to handle questions or let the conversation naturally progress. Over time, you'll notice that fewer words delivered with steady intent create stronger impact and leave far less room for misinterpretation than a flood of anxious elaboration ever could. Invisible boundaries erode your self-respect the moment you allow them to be crossed without comment. Maybe she jokes at your expense in front of friends, borrows money you'd rather not lend, or frequently cancels plans last minute. Yet you say nothing because you don't want to cause drama. On the surface, you appear laid back. Underneath, you chip away at your own authority. Stoicism insists that respect for others begins with respect for yourself. If you silently accept every overstep, you teach her, and anyone watching, that your comfort is negotiable, your time dispensable. Each unspoken boundary breach is a small betrayal of your values. Marcus Aurelius would ask why you guard your possessions, but leave your principles unlocked. Allowing constant lateness, teasing, or disregard trains your psyche to tolerate disrespect. Worse, it shifts the dynamic. She no longer expects pushback and you grow resentful. That simmering frustration can explode later in ways that look irrational, but really stem from dozens of ignored micro-violations. Fixing invisible boundaries starts with clarity. Decide what behaviors you can flex on and which undermine your dignity. Epictetus counseled drawing lines internally before you enforce them externally. Once you know your non-negotiables, articulate them calmly the first time they're crossed. I value punctuality. If plans change, please let me know ahead. No anger, no sermon, just a statement of standard. If she respects it, the bond strengthens through mutual understanding. If she mocks or dismisses it, you've learned something crucial about compatibility, and you can adjust your involvement accordingly. Remember, boundaries aren't walls to isolate you. They're frameworks that allow genuine connection without sacrificing self-worth. When you enforce them consistently, you project quiet confidence, showing you're warm and flexible yet firm about what honors your time and values. Paradoxically, most people find that mix more attractive than unlimited accommodation, because it signals self-trust. By making the invisible visible, you convert silent resentment into transparent, respectful interaction. Reclaiming the balance that Stoic philosophy calls living in accord with reason and virtue. Clinging to the past can manifest in casual stories that always circle back to an ex. Nostalgia-heavy complaints about how relationships used to be, or subtle comparisons that position every new woman against a bygone yardstick. On the surface, it might seem harmless, just reminiscing or being honest about history. But over time, it signals you haven't processed old wounds or integrated old lessons. Stoicism urges living in the present moment, guided by reason rather than memory's emotional residue. When your conversations and even your decisions are saturated with yesterday's disappointments or glories, You unconsciously drag that baggage into a space meant for fresh connection. Women pick up on this quickly, often through the tone of your references rather than the words themselves. A wistful sigh before you mention my last relationship, or a defensive edge when talking about how an ex ruined trust, plants seeds of doubt. Can you truly see the person in front of you, or are you projecting unresolved narratives onto her? Marcus Aurelius cautioned against letting old experiences dictate current judgments. If you do, you're at the mercy of events you can't change. Each time you anchor today's interaction to yesterday's pain, you inadvertently invite her into a comparison game she never agreed to play, and one that leaves both of you shortchanged. Holding on to the past also hinders your own growth. Stoic practice involves reflecting on mistakes, extracting wisdom, and then releasing the emotional charge so it doesn't cloud future action. If you keep retelling stories of betrayal or lost opportunities, you reinforce the neural pathways of bitterness or regret. That mental loop makes you hyper-vigilant for signs that history will repeat, pushing you into defensive behaviors, overanalyzing her texts, bracing for disappointment, or testing her loyalty prematurely. Those habits, born of old wounds, send the message that trust must be earned through hurdles rather than mutual respect. Hardly an inviting dynamic. Breaking free means acknowledging grief or disappointment without letting it script new chapters. One practical Stoic exercise is nightly journaling. Jot down any reactive thoughts that tie present events to past injuries, then question their relevance. Ask, does today's situation truly mirror the past, or am I superimposing old meaning? Over time, this interrogation weakens the grip of lingering stories. Another step is to consciously celebrate small moments of present-day positivity. Her unique sense of humor, a shared adventure, or even simple silent comfort. By spotlighting fresh experiences, you train your attention away from bygone narratives toward what's actively unfolding. Finally, when you speak about your history, do so in a way that shows closure and insight, not lingering resentment. It's one thing to say, I learned to communicate more directly after my last relationship, and another to lament, my ex never understood me, so I expect that'll happen again. The first statement proves growth. The second announces a wound still bleeding. Women sense the difference instantly, and it shapes whether they view your past as a source of wisdom or as emotional quicksand. Letting go of the past isn't about erasing memory. It's about freeing your present self and anyone sharing it with you from the weight of unfinished business. When you lighten that load, you don't just appear stronger. You actually become more receptive, engaged, and capable of forming a bond uncluttered by shadows. Stoic composure flourishes in that uncluttered space, transforming every new encounter into an authentic opportunity rather than a rerun of yesterday's plot. Impulsive displays. Whether sudden anger, bragging, or dramatic gestures may seem like moments of raw authenticity, yet they often expose an absence of inner governance. One minute you're composed, the next you're snapping at a server for a small mistake or loudly one-upping a friend's story, while you might justify it as being real. What others see, especially women, is a volatility that hints at deeper insecurity. Stoicism teaches that true strength shows in measured responses, not in emotional fireworks. When impulses run the show, you telegraph that external triggers, not deliberate judgment, dictate your behavior. Such outbursts chip away at trust. If your mood can flip the atmosphere at any time, people learn to tread lightly around you, monitoring your cues instead of relaxing into genuine connection. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that events themselves are neutral. It's our interpretation that stirs turmoil. By reacting explosively to minor setbacks, a late text reply, a teasing joke, you signal that your inner state is fragile, easily hijacked by circumstance. Over time, women may see this unpredictability as a liability. Today's playful debate could become tomorrow's argument. Nobody saw coming. Impulsive displays also derail the balanced give and take of conversation. Bragging bursts aimed at securing attention can feel exhausting to the listener, who now serves as an involuntary audience to your ego. Epictetus would note that boasting is merely a plea for external validation. It shows you doubt your own worth unless others acknowledge it. Meanwhile, angry flare-ups distract from productive dialogue, forcing everyone to manage your emotions rather than address the real issue at hand. In both cases, presence is replaced by performance, and intimacy gives way to vigilance. Reining in impulsive tendencies starts with the Stoic pause, catching the split second between stimulus and response. When irritation flares or the urge to dominate conversation arises, inhale and count to 3. Ask, is this reaction aligned with my principles, or am I just comforting my ego? Such micro-reflections don't suppress feeling. They translate it into intentional action. If you need to address a problem, state it calmly. I feel unsettled by what just happened. Can we clarify? This stance preserves grievance without drama, demonstrating mastery over instinct. Practicing emotional regulation outside social settings helps too. Physical exercise, breath work, or journaling discharge pent-up energy so it's less likely to burst unexpectedly. Stoic negative visualization, briefly imagining everyday comforts withdrawn, builds resilience, making real-world annoyances feel small in comparison. Over time, you reinforce neural pathways that favor measured reactions over knee-jerk outbursts. When you replace impulsive displays with composed authenticity, your words and emotions align under conscious leadership. Women often interpret this steadiness as a hallmark of maturity. You're present, not performing. and your calm confidence invites them to lower their guard as well. In that shared ease, attraction and respect flourish naturally, unclouded by the fear that the next minor bump could trigger another unpredictable scene. It's natural to show interest, but when every move revolves around pursuing her approval, double texting after no response, rearranging your schedule for the faintest chance to see her, or constantly asking, "What do you want to do?" you shift from potential partner to persistent follower. Instead of creating a balanced dance of mutual curiosity, you're sprinting ahead, hoping she'll eventually catch your vibe. Stoicism reminds us that genuine confidence leads by example. You set your direction first, then invite others to walk beside you. When you chase, you surrender that leadership and inadvertently your allure. Chasing signals scarcity. By prioritizing her time, interests, and validation above your own plans, you imply that her attention is the person yours is easy to win. Marcus Aurelius taught that self-respect comes from valuing your own judgment and schedule. If you drop everything when she calls but expect her to decide the plan, you show that your life lacks structure without her input. Over time, this dependency can suffocate the natural intrigue that thrives on balanced give and take. She may start to wonder if you have passions outside of pleasing her. Conversely, leading isn't about dominance or rigidity. It's about having direction. When you propose a well-thought plan, "Let's check out the new jazz spot Friday 8 p.m., you demonstrate decisiveness and consideration. If she can't make it, you adapt without groveling or guilt trips, perhaps suggesting an alternative that still respects your own calendar. Epictetus would call this focusing on what you control, the invitation, and releasing what you don't, her answer. This stance shows you value collaboration over pursuit, positioning you as a partner with a clear life map rather than a passenger waiting for her route. Leading also applies emotionally. Instead of probing for constant reassurance, "Do you still like me?" you share your perspective first. "I've enjoyed our time together and would like to see where this goes." That openness sets a tone of honest communication rather than passive hope. If she reciprocates, great. If not, you stay grounded, ready to redirect your energy toward pursuits aligned with your values. The Stoic approach guards your peace, ensuring that enthusiasm never mutates into neediness. Ultimately, chasing exhausts both parties. You feel perpetually on edge, and she feels pressured to validate every step. Leading with Stoic composure transforms attraction from an uphill struggle into a steady journey. Two people choosing to walk side by side because each has strong footing of their own. Drop the chase, embrace purposeful direction, and watch the dynamic shift from strained pursuit to mutual respect and interest. We've peeled back 10 hidden attitudes that quietly undercut your confidence and sabotage genuine connection. None of them require superhuman effort to fix, just steady Stoic awareness and the courage to replace reflex with reason. Now it's your move. Which weak habit hit home, and what's the first Stoic swap you'll put into practice? Drop your answer in the comments so we can trade tactics and keep one another accountable. If this breakdown sharpened your mindset, hit like, subscribe for the next masculine Stoic mind drop, and remember, real strength is built on quiet self-command, not frantic approval-seeking. Cut the noise, keep your center, and let your calm resolve speak louder than any line ever could.